A new version of Liferay is out, Liferay DXP, and it has a lot of new features. It's amazing, because that's what we all want, right? Lots of features, or not? Well, in reality, you are already using a version of Liferay. Maybe you are upgrading to 7.1. Maybe you are deciding whether to use Liferay or some other product. And is features really what you want? Is it that? Not really, right? You have a need. You have a business need. And what you want is to find the best solution for that need. And features are great if they help you find that need. So in this presentation, what I want to show you is how we've carefully crafted all of the features, each and every one of the features of Liferay 7.2, so that it adds the most business value to you. And I really believe that it's one of the best features, or one of the best releases that we've ever done, but not because it has a lot of features, which it does, but because those features will really help you achieve those business needs. So let's get started. As Brian was saying, we believe the digital must transform the whole experience. And like Brian also mentioned, that includes, obviously, what the customer sees, those customer experiences that you are going to create for them. But if you only focus on that, you are only doing half of the job. Because in order for customer experiences to be good, in order for them to really add value to your customers, to your partners, to your dealers, then you also need to make sure that the digital operations are working fine. So we've designed Liferay 7.2 in order to cover all of these things, from customer experience, from the things that are visible, to the digital operations. So let's dig a little bit. When we talk about customer experiences, we believe it's very important that those customer experiences are consistent and that they are connected to each other. Brian showed this example, right? And I highlighted some of the words here. Here, what is the business value that was achieved by creating a customer experience which simplified the renewal process to 2 clicks is 40% of the customers which were previously living are no longer living. That's awesome, right? So when you read this, you think, oh, I also want to create a customer experience. Now, the thing is, we've been seeing things like this for many years. You've seen it, your competitors have seen it, and guess what? Just creating customer experiences is not enough anymore. We believe that in order to differentiate yourself from your customers, from your competitors, then you need to provide more. You need to be able to provide not only customer experiences, but you also need to be able to optimize them. And this thing is not working. I have a bad customer experience with clickers lately. So we believe that businesses need to be able to evolve, need to be able to be agile and optimize those customer experiences. It's not enough to just launch them and then leave them, and then everything is going to be fine. That's what everybody is already doing, or at least the competitors you want to compete with, the winners. Okay, so if that's what we believe you guys need to do, then how can we help? So the way we think we can help is through 3 things. Oh man, this is, okay. First, we want to make it really quick, really fast, easy, agile to create new experiences, okay? So far, it's pretty obvious. Now, second, and this is extremely important, Liferay has always been good at empowering developers. Now, we want to take that one step further. We want to empower developers. We want to leverage developers, not just to build the final solution, but to enable business users, non-technical users in general, to be able to create those same experiences or customize them or optimize them themselves. And that is a key challenge. And that is a key achievement. And I'll show you how we've built features precisely for that. And the third one is to be able to optimize those experiences by learning through insights by Liferay. At the end, why do we want this? Why are we providing these 3 things? Because we believe that agility is key to that customer experience. Not only you have to create, you need to be able to optimize, to personalize, and then you need to be able to measure how is it working. Is it achieving what I want, or is it not achieving what I want? and then optimize along the way to achieve more and more of what your end goal was. So let's dig a little bit more into what features we've built and we've added into Liferay DXP to support this cycle. First, creation. We've completely reinvented how creation of experiences works at Liferay. Brian already showed this picture, and I want to highlight a few other things. So first of all, we provide ready-to-use components that can be used to create, in this case, a page or a website, right? All of the editing is completely visual. The editing of content can be inline, and then, of course, you can also connect to existing content. But one very important thing that we paid a lot of attention to is if we want to empower these business users, then we need to make sure we put the right guardrails in place so that business users can do what they need, but they cannot break things unconsciously, or they cannot get out of, for example, what designers carefully crafted. So we've put a lot of attention to that. With these features, we've completely reshaped how pages and sites and experiences in general are built with Liferay. So this is how it looks right now. So you just add a component that comes out of the box, or your developer may have created. You have completely realistic preview while editing. So this is very, very close to how it's going to look. You can inline edit the text, or you can select images. You can customize the layout, and then add different things to the layout. You can connect to existing content, right? Okay. And then just finish, just dragging and dropping fragments or widgets, portlets that you may have already created or that come out of the box with Liferay. And all of that visually. Now, a lot of this comes out of the box, but as I said, Liferay is often differentiated because we empower developers so much. Each of those components that we were seeing on the right and that a non-technical user can just drag and drop into a page can be built by developers. And we've introduced this new concept of page fragments, which are much easier to get introduced to. Any web developer, just knowing web technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, can create fragments that then business users can leverage and do inline editing and configure. And not only that, we've created a tool, we call it the Fragment Toolkit or Fragment CLI, which allows these web developers to just use their tool of preference, which nowadays is VS Code. And they can just develop on their desktop, and only when they are ready, they can deploy to Liferay and make it available to the business users. So we are definitely not forgetting about developers, we're empowering them even more. And at this point, I have to make a confession. So a few years back, when Gartner, when Forrester, they started talking about digital experience platforms, and they started talking about experiences, the developer in me wondered, what is an experience? Don't say experience. I mean, it's a very cool sounding word. You have to admit that. But other than that, what does it mean? Just tell me, do you mean a website? Do you mean a dashboard? Do you mean a mobile app? And I don't know, what is it? And as I've been talking more and more with Brian, which is much more visionary than I am, I've started to understand more and more how powerful that word is. And as I've started to see customers use this new tool, as I've seen developers create fragments for purposes well beyond the most obvious building a site example that I'm just showing, I realized, wow, it's really meaningful. It's important to use this word experience because it really drives the imagination of people to think, how can I serve my customers? And I believe now we're starting to offer the features that really unleash all that power. So far the type of experience that I've shown is creating a website, creating a page. But content is extremely important in many of these experiences. And we mentioned that one of the things that we believe are necessary for an experience to be successful is to be consistent. And if you have content, you want to reuse the content. That so far it's pretty obvious. But not only the content, you want to reuse the lists of content because those lists have a specific semantics, have a specific goals in mind. So we've introduced a new tool called content sets that basically allow a user to create a feed of content. And with that feed of content, for example, in this case, we're seeing a manual selection of content. The user is just literally going to select a specific content and put it on a list. And then this list is reusable. It's reusable across pages, but it's also reusable across different types of UIs, across mobile, across any digital assistants, about anything, really, that same list. And this is an example of a manually selected list, which is useful in some cases, but in some other cases, what you really want is just do a dynamic selection. And based on specific criteria, like categories or tags, or some other characteristic of the content, you want to create a list. For example, the latest corporate news. And then once you've defined this feed, it can be, again, reused across all of your experiences and devices. The whole goal is ensure that you can accelerate the time to market and still be consistent when publishing lists of content. And if content is important, then authoring the content must be important. We are not only thinking of those page authors, but also, especially in large contexts, the content authors are a different group of users. And we've invested a lot in our content editor so that the whole goal is that content authors can just focus on authoring their content. And once they've authored their content, then it has to be published. And one of the key characteristics of Liferay is that content can be published in a large variety of ways. So one of the challenges that we had and we kept hearing for content authors is, I want to preview how that content used to look, or is going to look once it's published. And our answer so far was, well, there's so many ways, right? Obviously, that's not a good answer, right? So we've gone the extra length to ensure that regarding of the many ways of displaying the content, regardless of the many statuses in which a content can be, it can be a draft, it can be a schedule for later publication, it can be going through a workflow. Regardless of any of that, content authors or anyone in this process can now preview the content in place, in its page, by itself, with different templates. All of that can be previewed before it's actually visible for the end users. And once it's published, then what's the next need? The next need is, since there are so many ways of publishing content, I want to know exactly what it's being used for each of the content that I have. So we've also built this tool, which allows seeing exactly where the content is used. It can be in different pages, it can be even in page templates, it can be in specific display page templates, which is also a very interesting new concept we're introducing. Anywhere in the sites where this content is published, you can see it through this new tool. At the end, we're giving a better tool to create content and also a better tool to see how that content is going to be used or is already being used. Okay, but not all content is structured like this. The content I was showing is structured. It's created filling a form. We've also realized that very often, some of this content is created offline. It's creating with Office tools. So what we've done to make that process easier is we've integrated with both Google Docs and Office 365 and provided an API so that it's easy to add additional Office suites if necessary. So the way it works is you can create or edit an Office 365 or Google Doc document directly from Liferay's UI. It opens their tool where you can use all of their capabilities. And then once you're done, you return to Liferay, and that document is safely stored in Liferay. So we've talked about creating. Let's move on to the next part of the wheel, which is personalizing. Maybe some of you who have been around with Liferay for a long time, you are aware of audience targeting, which was the first way in which we introduced personalization. But now we've taken it much farther. And why? Well, personalization is a key way of driving customer capturing and conversion, right? Which is very typical, especially if you are in B2B, but also B2C. This is extremely important. But what we've realized is that even for those of our customers who are in government, which are many of them, this is also extremely important. Because what's the point of having so many digital services if there are so many that customers cannot really find what they want, what they need, right? So personalizing, it's actually about providing a better experience to your customers. So the first thing that we have introduced is ready-to-use, powerful segmentation out of the box in the product. So if you were using audience targeting, then think about those segmentation features that audience targeting had out of the box, but much, much more powerful. You can create much more complex segmentation rules with Liferay 7.2. And not only that, but it is also connected to the cloud, so you can connect it, if you want, to Liferay DXP analytics, which gives you much more intelligence, which runs AI algorithms to let you segment users based, for example, on their interests. How do we use this? Again, we've also gone the extra length, and using the exact same tool that we've seen to create experiences, you can create a new experience for this page. And again, using the exact same way of building a page, you are now personalizing this page. In this example from Ruvo, which Brian mentioned, we are optimizing this page for a specific segment of users, which is high-profile users who we believe might buy or have a luxury car, right? So we are even personalizing the navigation, not only the text and the image we saw before, but we're personalizing the navigation. And not only that, let's give them a special offer. So we just add a banner, which is only going to be available in this experience. See, we can see how that was the default one. And this is our personalization powered by segments, which can be powered by AI in the cloud if necessary. Really, really cool. It comes out of the box, and it's exactly the same tool. You don't have to go to a different tool to personalize, because the personalization needs to be part of that cycle. The same user should be empowered to do all of it. And I mentioned earlier that content is very important, and I mentioned this cool new tool called content sets. We've also added personalization to it. So you can create different content sets or different variations of the same content set for these different segments, such as technical prospects or business prospects. And then what you are achieving by doing this is you are reusing that personalization across all of your channels. If you're reusing that content set for your web, for different pages, different sites, or even different device applications, you can reuse that same personalization across all of them. And one other really cool feature that we've introduced is auto-tagging. Auto-tagging is driven by artificial intelligence. And here I'm showing one of the most impressive cases in which we're uploading an image of a bird, and then it's automatically tagging it as an indigo bunting. This works for images, this works for web content, this works for documents as well. And this is really good for empowering personalization, because personalization, especially interest-based personalization, is driven by two things. First, you need to know what the user is interested in. And by automatically tagging all of your content, it's much easier to know what the interest is. And then you need to know what other content is related to those interests to promote that content. And again, auto-tagging also serves that purpose. So moving on to the final third part of this cycle, measuring and optimizing. What have we done here? So we've introduced a new feature. It's enabled since Liferay DXP 7.2 Service Pack 1. And basically, it allows, again from the same tool, without moving to another tool, to run an A/B test or a multivariate test directly. So this is a page, and a user with enough rights, they can just create a new test, select a goal. There are several goals supported. And once a goal is selected, then there is this panel which allows the user to select, hey, what I want in this case is I want that read more button to be clicked more often, right? That's my purpose in this example. So I just create several variants. For example, I can change the text. Look how it's, again, the exact same tool. And it's still stored in the same database. And then I just configure it. I configure how many users I want to the control variation, how many to the new ones, and then I want to be able to decide what is the best one with 95%. And it automatically estimates this is going to take around 15 days. And then you can adjust the parameters based on that if you want it to be decided sooner. At the end of the day, you want to increase the conversion rates of whatever you're trying to do with that page. And this is all connected to Liferay Analytics in the cloud, which is running the algorithms, intelligence algorithms, to ensure that you get the best result possible. And on the optimization side, we've also introduced optimization for search. This is incredibly important for any commerce-oriented site or anything where you really need your users to find what they are looking for. So often, if you do an analysis of what's going on, you'll find cases in which your users are looking for something and they don't find it because they are using the wrong word. So guess what? If they are using the wrong word, it's your problem, it's not theirs. So what we've done is we introduced two different tools. One of them is you can just define aliases, and you can even reorder the search results so that whatever you believe is most relevant for your customers or for your business, you can put them first instead of the natural search. And then you can also define synonyms for different words. So if they are using the wrong word, then just say it's a synonym of the word you wish they were using. Okay. At the end of the day, this will help your users find what they are looking for faster. And in cases like commerce sites, then it will increase your sales, right? Which is a pretty important goal. So we've built all these experiences, but as I've mentioned, nowadays, these experiences are across many devices, and these experiences need to be connected. The way we're making that easier is by providing a new set of APIs which are much easier to consume and much more powerful than the ones that Liferay already had before. So in the last few years, we've been moving from the more traditional CMS, the more traditional platform, to a new way of doing this thing, to creating content, consuming content, which is headless, right? But headless also has its own issues as it's been adopted more and more. You realize you have to invest a lot on building that UI. So we believe what is the best of both worlds is this concept of decoupled CMS, of decoupled platform, and that's what we are doing. What this basically means is you have the UI, which is everything I've been showing you so far, which is very powerful, but for some devices or for some specific experiences, that's not what you want. You want something much more specific, much more tailor-fit that you want your developers to be able to develop. And that's what we've built these new REST APIs and GraphQL APIs for. And I like to highlight two specific use cases that we are finding a lot. One of them is a custom front end. For some specific needs, you may need a front end that is just tailor-fit for one specific purpose. You want the SEO to be perfect. You want to be able to fine-tune every single line of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Or you want to use state-of-the-art frameworks like Angular, like React, or it's already been built. You just want to connect it to Liferay. And then the other use case that we're seeing more and more is new channels, and specifically, these intelligent devices that we can talk to, which sound pretty amazing, and more companies are leveraging to interact with their customers. So we have made sure that our APIs, our new APIs, are really, really good options for those two and many other use cases. So GraphQL, for example, is a new de facto standard created by Facebook and now evolved by a foundation that is really loved by front-end developers that are building those custom front-ends. So we are providing a new set of GraphQL APIs. And we also provide REST APIs using the OpenAPI standard, which is really catching the world by storm. It's really enjoying huge adoption. Both of them have very strong adoption. They are well-defined standards, and they're very good tooling, so it's very easy for developers to get used to building more APIs, extending them, or consuming those APIs. And for both, we are providing very advanced features, filters, search, response controls, what we've seen that in the real world is needed for building those experiences. And of course, with very strong security. That's key. As you start using more and more APIs, security becomes key. So we've talked about customer experiences. Let's talk about the part that it's not so commonly seen. And this is somewhere where Liferay really excels, especially compared to most of our competitors. Because Liferay's portal heritage and integration capabilities and extensibility really make connecting those customer experiences to your internal operations, to your internal systems, much, much easier. So if that's already the case, what can we do? What can we do to make that better? So Brian was saying how in these digital operations, something that is very important is to control the workflow, how everything needs to happen in a certain order, triggered by something that the user has done, the customer has done through the customer experience, but then evolving through a series of phases. Well, the first part that we believe we can change, and we're setting the foundation in 7.2, and we'll continue to invest a lot on it, is making it easier to build those digital operation applications in Liferay. And the way we're making it easier is by reducing the amount of code that is necessary, and especially the amount of system-level, database-level code. And we're introducing the data engine, which is basically a system that allows, through an API, to define the data. So it becomes much more agile to define a data model and then change it over time. And then you can build applications on top of that. It can be contact us forms that actually are connected to some internal digital operations. It can be partner onboarding. It can be an application processing form. And then you will build that application through the usual mechanisms of Liferay, through the new mechanisms as a headless application. And then this application, which is basically form and workflow driven, will connect to the data model, right? And basically what you have achieved is much faster time to market, more agility to be able to change that data model over time and adapt to what you find is working or is not working. And when you do things that way, or when you use workflow in general, what we wanted to ensure is that you have the data to find out if it's working or not. So we've built out of the box a tool which basically allows you to define SLAs for each of the processes that are defined through Liferay's workflow, and then track whether those SLAs are being met or not. So here you can see how 100 processes are overdue and are not meeting this SLA. This is a real UI that comes out of the box now with Liferay 7.2. So we've gone through the customer experiences. We've gone through digital operations. What else? Well, Liferay is known for, and that's what those of you already using Liferay use it for, is build your own enterprise solutions. It could be customer portals, partner portals, a solution to connect to IoT devices. It could be anything. And we want to continue investing in making that easier and easier over time. And how are we doing that? Well, at the end, we want you to be able to take these features that we have, group it with yours, and then build that pretty solution, that specific solution that is exactly what you need. And as Brian was saying, we want these IT teams to be able to iterate faster. So this is an application. It's built with React. It could be built with Angular. And one of the things that we want to do is empower these front-end developers who have an amazing set of new tools that have evolved over the last few years. And we want to make it much easier to take this application, again, built with these out-of-the-box tools, like Angular CLI, like Create React App, which are the tools that front-end developers are used to. They don't have to learn anything Liferay. Of course, the Java developers can still use their standard tools as well, such as Spring or Java EE standards. And then, just without any modification or very minor configuration modifications, they can take this application, deploy it to Liferay. And for the business user, they won't care how that application has been developed. It just appears as another widget or as another fragment that they can add to the page. The developers get what they want. They can use the tools that they know best. They can develop in their own desktops, forgetting about Liferay until it really adds value. And that's when they are empowering the business user to place that application anywhere they want. And development is one side of things, but when we are talking about development, then we need to talk about what comes afterwards. And we need to talk about setting up the development environment. So we are facilitating setting up the Liferay development environment by providing official Docker images, and we'll provide official containers for whatever standard comes out. And Liferay Workspace can deploy the developer customizations to it directly. So no need to install Java, for example, if you are a front-end developer. And then, once you've finished the development and testing, you can also use Liferay Workspace to be able to create your own custom Docker images for your solution. And then you can take those Docker images, those containers, and deploy to DXP Cloud. Or if you are not using DXP Cloud, to your cloud provider, as long as it supports Docker or any other container technology. So that it simplifies the whole process of setting up the development environment, development and testing, and then deploying to the cloud. As Brian said, our goal is to help you become this agile organization that can use Liferay DXP, that can use Liferay Commerce to build those solutions that really drive business value for you, simplify connecting them or deploying them to the cloud, managing them in the cloud, and then connect it for analytics, for insights, for intelligence, so that you can really drive that personalization and that customization. Connected and consistent journeys, efficient and measurable processes, and the ability to build your own enterprise solution. Right? So if you want to take 3 final key ideas of this presentation of how Liferay DXP 7.2, how its features provide value, is more out-of-the-box features which are focused on those business users, on empowering them to create personalized, measure and optimize experiences, but also setting the foundation to be able to create tightly integrated digital operations also much faster. It's not only possible, but it's going to be faster and more agile. And finally, empowering IT, not only to develop solutions, but develop tools that take even another step to what we've already taken out of the box for empowering those business users. I hope this really shows how features are great, but as long as they provide the business value that you need. Thank you.